Mula noon hanggang ngayon,
Home to millions of species. A home worth saving. Global Ideas tells stories of creative people and innovative projects around the world. Ideas that protect the climate, boost green energy solutions, and reforestation. Using interactive content to inspire people to take action. Global Ideas, the environment series of Global 3000.
Hi, I am Teacher Sally and this is Kid Kwento, one of Net25 Kids' online shows. Kid Kwento is now on TV. You can watch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 to 4:30 p.m. Also watch Anong Sa Inyo with Ate DJ every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 to 4:30 p.m. Sa Kid Kwento, ang aming motto ay, let's all read to succeed! Hooray! Kita-kita tayo ha! Bye-bye!
The World Health Organization on Friday raised its global risk assessment of the new coronavirus to its highest level after the epidemic spread to sub-Saharan Africa and financial markets slumped. Take a look.
Let me now say a few words about the coronavirus. Today, the World Health Organization raised the risk assessment of COVID-19 to very high at the global level. We are seeing cases in a number of new countries, including now also the African continent. This is not a time for panic. It's a time to be prepared, fully prepared. As WHO Director General Dr. Tedros said, the greatest enemy right now is not the virus, it is fear, rumors, and stigma. Now it's the time for all governments to step up and do everything possible to contain the disease, and to do so without stigmatization and respecting human rights. We know containment is possible, but the window of opportunity is narrowing. And so I appeal for solidarity and full global support, but with all countries fully assuming their responsibilities. As they do so, they can count on the support of the United Nations and, naturally, of the World Health Organization that is part of our family.
Indonesia has announced its first 2 coronavirus cases as Iran reported 11 more deaths from the virus, bringing its total to 54, the highest outside China. And the number of people infected in Italy, the center of the outbreak in Europe, jumped to 1,694, while the number in France increased to 130. With the outbreak deepening, the staff at the Louvre Museum voted to close the iconic museum. The Czech Republic, meanwhile, Scotland and the Dominican Republic have confirmed their first cases. Meanwhile, China's state media released video of 2 coronavirus patients in their 90s being discharged from hospital over the weekend after recovering in Wuhan, the epicenter of the virus outbreak. Take a look.
我多大的年纪能够战胜病毒，其他的人都可以战胜。
Published Thursday in JAMA supports the idea that people may test positive for the virus long after they seem to have recovered. In 4 medical professionals exposed to the virus in Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the epidemic, a test that detects the viral genetic material remained positive 5 to 13 days after they were asymptomatic. Health experts say coronaviruses are on the whole poorly understood. And some scientists have said that people infected with the new coronavirus produce antibodies that will protect them in the future. And a single patient report suggests that the immunity may last at least 7 days. The second fatality on U.S. soil from the novel coronavirus has been confirmed. Health officials said on Sunday as the New York reported its first case. The man who died Saturday was in his 70s and had underlying health conditions, according to the Public Health Office in King County, Washington State. The death occurred in King County, the most populous in the state and home to Seattle, a city of more than 700,000 people. It is the second death in both Washington State and King County. The first victim, who died earlier Saturday, was in his 50s and also had underlying health conditions, according to Jeff Dutchin, Public Health Officer for Seattle and King County. The first victim was one of a handful with no known links to global hot zones to have contracted the virus, indicating that the pathogen was now likely spreading in communities. On the opposite coast, New York confirmed its first positive case of the COVID-19 virus. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump moved to quell fears about the novel coronavirus after the first death on U.S. soil was confirmed on Saturday. Take a look.
As an important part of our efforts, on Monday I'll be meeting with the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, actually. They'll be coming to the White House, and we're talking about a vaccine and developing very quickly, and they've already started working on it, developing very rapidly a vaccine for the virus, to combat the virus. Professionally handled. Our country is prepared for any circumstance. We hope it's not going to be a major circumstance. It'll be a smaller circumstance, but whatever the circumstance is, we're prepared. And I'd like to just ask and caution that the media, we would respectfully ask the media and politicians and everybody else involved not do anything to incite a panic, because there's no reason to panic at all. Well, we have a great relationship, as you know, with Mexico. We have 27,000 soldiers there.
Vice President Mike Pence announced that the administration raised its travel warnings to the highest level for certain parts of South Korea and Italy to the highest level, and was expanding travel restrictions to include any foreign national who has visited Iran within the last 14 days. More global events were disrupted due to the epidemic, with the U.S. delaying a regional summit of the ASEAN due in Las Vegas next month. In Gaithersburg, Maryland, biotech company Novavax announced progress in its efforts to develop a novel vaccine to protect against coronavirus disease, COVID-19. Eliza Gonzalez-Manglikmot reports.
At present, there are up to 40 laboratories approved by the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, to carry out coronavirus testing, as the first death on U.S. soil due to COVID-19 has been confirmed. One of the very first U.S. labs to conduct such testing is the one here in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Beside me is Novavax, a biotechnology company racing to be the first to come up with a vaccine to protect against COVID-19. In a statement released by Novavax, the company said it has produced and is currently assessing multiple nanoparticle vaccine candidates in animal models prior to identifying an optimal candidate for human testing. which is expected to begin by the end of spring 2020. Novavax created the COVID-19 vaccine candidates using its proprietary recombinant protein nanoparticle technology platform to generate antigens derived from the coronavirus spike S protein. The company expects to utilize its proprietary Matrix M adjuvant with its COVID-19 vaccine candidate to enhance immune responses. While we wait for the vaccine that may help protect against COVID-19, the World Health Organization advises the public to take precautionary measures such as washing your hands frequently, maintaining social distance, avoiding touching the eyes, nose, and mouth, practicing respiratory hygiene, and if you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. And make sure to stay informed and follow the advice given by your healthcare provider. In Gaithersburg, Maryland, Eliza Gonzalez, Manglik Mott, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Eliza. And we're still following this developing story, the hostage-taking situation in Green Hills, as Philippine police surrounded the shopping mall earlier, where a SAC security guard opened fire and took several people inside hostage. We have live with us Erlo Bringas to give us an update. Erlo?
Yes, Alma, after almost 10 hours of the incident, the suspect or the hostage taker come out and had released his 30 hostages after 10 hours of the incident started. He talks to media about the alleged corruption in the shopping center. The suspect is identified as Archie Panay, the former security guard of this mall. The situation here at the Vera Mall in Green Hills, San Juan is still guarded by the Philippine National Police after this incident. The authorities negotiates with the suspect inside of the mall at the second floor admin office. Also, Mayor Zamora, the mayor of San Juan, also talks to suspect to negotiate and calm down the suspect. The gunman is holding a while ago around 30 hostages. That includes vendors and malls employees at the admin office of the V Mall. 11 a.m. in the morning, the incident happened here and start in the mall, and the mall goers panic and run to go outside of the mall after hear the gunshots. Suspect is in possession of a gun and grenade. The suspect, identified by the securities as a former security of the mall, provided by the Safeguard Armor Security Corporation as SASCOR. Authorities suspected that the gunman went off a rampage because he was fired. He went on absence without leave for weeks. After the suspect came out and talked to media, he make it also his firearm on his pocket. That's why the police grabbed him, and the police here in the area is also panic, and also the people here in the vicinity of the area. The suspect is now in the custody of San Juan Police and waiting for the case to be filed by the authorities. The situation here now, Alma, in Green Hills Shopping Center is now already controlled and now in a normal situation, but the establishment is closed now. Alma, as of this time, Mayor Zamora is talk to the other press people here in Green Hills, San Juan. But the other authorities still clearing this area because there are many bystanders here also watching the situation here in Green Hills Shopping Mall. That's the latest news here in San Juan. Reporting for Eagle News, Erlo Bringas, I'm 1 with 25.
Erlo, can you hear me? Erlo, ano yung mga demands?
Alma.
Yes, ano yung mga demands ni Arnel Paray? What's his name? The hostage taker, yes. Can you tell me what is ano yung mga demands
Archie
niya?
Panay, Alma.
Archie Panay, okay. So ano yung mga demands ni Archie? At naibigay ba?
Yes, Alma, kanina we talked to Mayor Zamora of the San Juan City Mayor. But according to Mayor Zamora, hindi pa niya mai-disclose sa ngayon kung ano yung napag-usapan nila between the two of suspects at saka ng mga negotiator. Pero ang sa ngayon, kanina, nung nakausap natin yung suspect dito sa labas, pagkalabas niya kasama yung 13 na hostages, ay ang hinihimutok nito ay ang pamamalakad mismo ng management nitong mall na hindi raw tama at hindi raw tama ang pagtrato sa bawat isa. Pero i-confirm natin kay Mayor Zamora, gayon din sa hepe ng San Juan City Police, kung ano ba yung talagang napag-usapan na demand para doon sa suspect para ito nga'y makumbinsin nila na lumabas na ng gusali. Pero kanina pagkatapos nga nung nangyaring pakikipag-usap ng suspect sa media at kay Mayor Zamora, bigla nga itong naglabas ng baril, kaya ang nangyari ay agad itong kinrab ng mga pulis na nandito sa lugar, kaya nagkagulo na rin yung iba na nandito kanina, Alma.
Kumusta naman ang sitwasyon ng ating mga hostages?
Yes, yung mga hostages, Alma, ay kinuha na ng mga polis kanina. Hindi natin sure kung saan sila dinala sa ngayon. Pero I think sasilalim sila sa ilang mga, siguro psychological debriefing dahil nga doon sa nangyari. Siguro dahil na rin sa trauma na kanilang tinamo matapos nga nitong insidente na ito, Alma.
Ito, na pinapanood natin yung sinabi mo kanina, naglabas siya ng baril, nagkagulo, at ito ay pinagkakaguluhan siya ng biglang ginrab siya nitong mga pulis,
Yes.
Wala namang nasaktan sa nangyaring ito. Anong nangyari?
Yes, Alma, wala naman nasakta na sa nangyaring yan. Pero yung isa sa mga tauhan ng San Juan City Police ay nasugatan. Siguro minor, lang naman yon, minor na sugat doon sa kanyang siko. Dahil nga dito sa nangyaring paggagrab dito sa suspect na muntika na nga maglabas ng baril kanina at mamaril kanina ng lahat ng nasa paligid niya. At mismong tayo nasa harapan niya kanina na kumukuha ng video na medyo kinabahan din kanina dahil nga doon sa paglalabas niya ng baril, Alma.
Ayan, nakikita natin ngayon, mabuti na lamang at na-stop siya sa bigla niyang ginrab yung kanyang baril. O sige, maraming salamat sa iyo, Erlo Bringas, sa iyong update. And we'll get more updates as we follow this developing story. Thank you, Erlo Bringas, reporting there from Green Hills. All right, back to the situation on the COVID-19 disease outbreak. The leader of a South Korean sect linked to more than half of the country's 4,000 plus coronavirus cases apologized on Monday for the spread of the disease. Take a look. I would like to offer my sincere apology to the people on behalf of the members, said Shinjeonji head Lee Man-hee, his voice breaking. The 88-year-old twice got down on his knees to bow before reporters in Gapyeong, his head to the floor. Lee is revered by his followers as the promised pastor who has taken on the mantle of Jesus and will take 144,000 people with him to heaven on the day of judgment, which he will usher in in his own lifetime. A 61-year-old female member developed a fever on February 10, but attended at least 4 services in Daegu, the country's 4th largest city with a population of 2.5 million and the center of the outbreak before being diagnosed. At worship, Shinjeonji members sit closely together on the floor and they pray extensively in what critics say creates an ideal environment to spread viral infections. Now, Lee, whose organization says he has tested negative for the virus, insisted that the group was actively cooperating with the government. Seoul city government has asked prosecutors to press charges, including homicide, against Lee and 11 other leaders after the sect was accused of submitting false lists of its members to authorities. Meanwhile, South Korea has already confirmed 599 new coronavirus cases Monday, taking the total to 4,335 according to health authorities, while the death toll now rose to 26. Around 60% of the infections are linked to Shincheonji. The country's central bank has warned of a contraction in the world's 12th largest economy in the first quarter, noting the epidemic will hit both consumption and exports. Scores of events have been canceled or postponed over the contagion, and the Education Ministry said school and kindergarten breaks, which had already been extended nationwide to next Monday, will be lengthened by a further 2 weeks. And in Europe, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that the EU's disease control agency has increased the coronavirus risk level. Take a look.
ECDC has announced today that the risk level has risen from moderate to high for people in the European Union. In other words, the virus continues to spread.
Meanwhile, Stella Kyriakides, European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, noted that there are 2,100 confirmed coronavirus cases in 18 EU member states with 38 fatalities. It's not a time for panic or misinformation, according to Kyriakides. In the meantime, Commissioner Johansson said there is no indication of the EU states wanting to introduce border checks due to the virus. Meanwhile, Iran said on Monday that novel coronavirus had killed another 12 people in the Islamic Republic, raising the country's overall death toll to 66. The number of confirmed cases leaped by 523 from the previous day to a total of 1,501, according to Deputy Health Minister Alireza Raisi in a news conference. The World Health Organization on Monday sent its first plane load of assistance to Iran to help fight coronavirus, dispatching 6 medics with tons of medical equipment and test kits aboard a UAE military aircraft. Robert Blanchard from the WHO in Dubai warned that as the supplies worth more than $300,000, including gloves, surgical masks, and respirators, were loaded onto the UAE military transport plane in Dubai, global supplies were running low. The 6-member medical team is made up of doctors, epidemiologists, and lab specialists who will help the Islamic Republic detect and control the virus, according to Blanchard, adding it was the first WHO team to be sent to Iran since the crisis began. Gulf states have announced a raft of measures to cut links with Iran to curb the spread of the virus, cutting off transport links and telling citizens not to visit. Some 129 cases have been confirmed across the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar, many of them pilgrims returning from Iran. And we'll be back with more right after this break.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN channel 725, same day as the Philippines.
Net25 is now available on OSN, the largest entertainment network in the Middle East and North Africa.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows live
and on demand anytime, anywhere on
any mobile device on OSN Play.
Speaking in South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg ended his campaign to be the Democratic nominee, giving a major boost to fellow centrist Joe Biden. Take a look.
After a year of going everywhere, meeting everyone, defying every expectation, seeking every vote, the truth is that the path has narrowed to a close for our candidacy, if not for our cause. And another of those values is responsibility. And we have a responsibility to consider the effect of remaining in this race any further. Our goal has always been to help unify Americans to defeat Donald Trump and to win the era for our values.
The 38-year-old Buttigieg's surprise decision to exit the race was set to shake up Super Tuesday when 14 states vote this week. It's expected to further boost the fortunes of Joe Biden after the former vice president scored a resounding victory in South Carolina's primary on Saturday. Buttigieg, a military veteran and former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, emerged as a major player in the contest by securing a narrow victory in the Iowa caucuses, earning widespread attention for his unflustered and professional approach in an often bitter Democratic nomination battle. But his third-place finish in Nevada and a poor showing in South Carolina confirmed polls suggesting that he struggled to build a broad coalition, including support from black voters. A key Democratic demographic emerged as a major player in the contest by securing a narrow victory in the Iowa caucuses, earning widespread attention for his approach in an often bitter Democratic nomination battle. Now, his third-place finish in Nevada, a poor showing in South Carolina, confirmed polls suggesting that he struggled to build a broad coalition, including support from black voters. This is a key Democratic demographic. Meanwhile, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders held a mega rally in Los Angeles 2 days ahead of Super Tuesday and urged Californian Democrats to vote. Take a look.
Tonight, I am asking you not only to come out and vote, but to bring your friends, your uncles, your aunts, your fellow workers. Let us have the highest voter turnout in California primary history. With your help, on Tuesday, we're going to win the Democratic primary here in California. With your help, we're going to win the Democratic nomination. And with your help, we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of America.
Sanders continues to hold poll leads in several Super Tuesday states, including California. And Israel held its third election in less than a year on Monday, seeking to break a grinding political deadlock, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu chasing re-election while facing criminal indictment. Take a look. The vote comes just 2 weeks before the right-wing premier, the longest-serving leader in Israeli history, stands trial after being formally charged in January with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. But final polls indicated that Netanyahu, the first Israeli prime minister ever indicted in office, had not lost support since inconclusive polls in April and September. Most surveys predict another close race between his liquid and centrist blue and white party led by ex-military chief Benny Gantz. Both sides are expected to fall well short of the 61 seats needed for a majority in Israel's parliament, the Knesset, and will have to strike deals with smaller parties to forge a stable coalition. Now, that proved impossible after the last two votes, and a further stalemate remains possible with few undecided in the divided country of 6.4 million eligible voters. But leaders across the political spectrum have said they are keen to avoid a fourth vote given the damage done by the impasse, as the caretaker government's inability to pass a budget has left key social programs unfunded. The 70-year-old premier, who will face trial from March 17, faces accusations including receiving improper gifts worth thousands of dollars and offering a media mogul lucrative regulatory changes in exchange for favorable coverage. Gantz has been accused of saying little about his vision for Israel, defining himself primarily as Netanyahu's rival. Meanwhile, Afghanistan's weakened government protested on Sunday against a key component of a deal between the U.S. and the Taliban, setting the scene for fractious talks when Kabul and the insurgents meet to strike a separate agreement. President Ashraf Ghani, who faces a political crisis following claims of fraud in his recent re-election, said he would not commit to a clause in the U.S.-Taliban deal that calls for a massive prisoner exchange, something the militants have been demanding for years. The swap is one part of the accord fleshed out over more than a year of talks between the U.S. and the Taliban that was signed Saturday in Doha and lays out a 14-month withdrawal timetable for all foreign forces, provided the militants fulfill various pledges and open talks with Kabul. Ghani committed to continue honoring a partial truce that has seen violence plummet in Afghanistan, but he pushed back against the requirement for the Taliban to release up to 1,000 prisoners and for the Afghan government to release around 5,000 insurgent captives by March 10, when talks are supposed to start. The agreement says the U.S. commits to completing this goal of releasing the Taliban prisoners, but it's unclear how that would happen if Kabul is not on board. The deal also says all foreign troops will leave if the Taliban stop jihadist groups such as Al-Qaeda and Islamic State using the country as a base to plot attacks against Washington and its allies. With the deal now signed and despite lingering uncertainty about what it means for Afghanistan, Kabul residents said they were relieved to walk the streets without fear of Taliban attacks. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Afghanistan's Taliban, if bad things happen, we'll go back, after the U.S. signed with them the historic accord that Washington hopes will mark the beginning of the end of its longest war.
If bad things happen, we'll go back. I let the people know we'll go back, and we'll go back so fast, and we'll go back with a force like nobody's ever seen. And I don't think that will be necessary. I hope it's not necessary.
After nearly 2 decades of conflict that has ravaged Afghanistan's impoverished population, the U.S. and the Taliban signed a historic accord on Saturday that Washington hopes will mark the beginning of the end of its longest war. The pact signed in Doha would see the Pentagon and foreign partner forces pull all their troops from Afghanistan within 14 months, provided the Taliban stick to pledges to open a dialogue with the Western-backed Kabul government and push back against jihadist groups, including Al-Qaeda. Supporters of the deal, which was signed in Doha after more than a year of fractious talks, say it marks a critical first step towards peace, though many Afghans fear it amounts to little more than a dressed-up surrender that will ultimately see the Taliban return to power.
The most important aspect of this agreement is that it's the first concrete milestone in an Afghan peace process. There have been efforts over a decade now to try to get a peace process launched, and this is the first tangible outcome of those efforts. Now, whether it actually sticks and whether it produces actual peace in Afghanistan remains to be seen. The will of Afghan leaders on all sides is going to be required if the violence is going to go down, stay down, and if there's going to be some kind of political accommodation. It's possible that won't happen. This is a very fragile process, and the parties have been at war for really decades now, not only the last 18 years. So I expect a bumpy road ahead, but there's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that should be seized. The agreement itself calls for them to promise not to allow Afghan soil to be used by terrorist groups. It says that they will send a, quote, clear message to their fighters not to cooperate with any terrorist groups. It doesn't specify really anything more specific than that. In addition to calling for the withdrawal of forces, of security forces, it also says that non-diplomatic civilian personnel will be withdrawn as well. And I take that as meaning intelligence. 3 years, and this is a clear-cut foreign policy achievement, even if it is something that's controversial in some circles in Washington. President Trump's clearly brushed aside that controversy and decided that this is something that's good for him, and so that could be a factor in the elections.
A young boy died when a makeshift boat packed with dozens of migrants capsized off the coast of Lesbos, the Greek port, police said, as the number of people attempting to cross into Europe from Turkey surges. 2 children were found unconscious after the vessel overturned at around 8:30 a.m. local time in the Aegean Sea. One of them could not be revived, while the other was taken to hospital, according to a spokesman. A further 46 people are safe following the accident, the official said. No details were given on the nationality or age of the child. A statement from the Greek Coast Guard said the boat that capsized had come from Turkey. The statement said 46 people were plucked from the waters unharmed, adding that the second injured child was out of danger. Migrant numbers are spiking along the Greek border, the external edge of the European Union, after Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said the country had opened the doors to Europe as he seeks to pressure the EU over the Syrian conflict and its humanitarian consequences. Eagle News will be back.
In Good Shape, your weekly health show on DW that covers many aspects of healthcare. We look at what's new in medical treatment, nutrition, fitness, and beauty. We discuss these topics in depth with specialists.
Welcome back. The coronavirus outbreak will have a major impact on economic growth worldwide this year. The OECD warned on Monday as it lowered its global GDP forecast by half a percentage point to 2.4%. Now, that is the lowest rate since the 2008-9 financial crisis. The group of free market economies said that forecast assumes the virus outbreak fades this year, but a more severe outbreak would weaken prospects considerably. Stock markets plummeted worldwide last week as investors fled to bonds and other safe havens on fears that consumer and business spending will freeze up the virus as the virus spreads, curtailing corporate profits. The global economy is set to grow only 2.4% this year. And as I said earlier, that is the lowest since 2009 and down from a forecast of 2.9% in November, according to the Paris-based Policy Forum. However, if the virus spreads throughout Asia, Europe, and North America, global growth could drop as low as 1.5% this year. And France's famed Louvre Museum closed on Sunday as coronavirus cases mounted across Europe and beyond, with the global death toll nearing 3,000 and Italy reporting a near doubling of cases in 48 hours. The virus has now infected more than 88,000 people and spread to more than 60 countries around the world, well beyond the epicenter in China, where it first emerged late last year. The Louvre, the world's most visited museum, was shut Sunday after staff refused to open the museum over fears of COVID-19. Some tourists turning up Sunday afternoon complained they had booked their tickets that same morning with no warning of the closure. France, which has 130 confirmed cases and 2 deaths from COVID-19, said it would ban gatherings of 5,000 people or more, closing schools and canceling religious services in some of the hardest hit zones. Sunday's half marathon in Paris was also canceled. 2 confirmed cases in France on Sunday were children aged 1 and 5 and their 27-year-old mother in the eastern city of Strasbourg. No children under 10 years old are reported to have died from the virus. And Cambodia's multi-billion-dollar garment industry is at risk of chain disruption from the deadly coronavirus. Its strongman premier said on Monday as the outbreak crippled Southeast Asia's key industries, bringing border trade to a trickle. Beijing issued unprecedented lockdowns for cities and provinces most affected, bringing to a shuddering halt the so-called factory of the world, key to a global supply chain. The coronavirus has shaken the global economy, according to Cambodia's strongman premier Hun Sen. And Cambodia is already feeling the sting with its $7 billion garment sector reliant on China for 60% of its raw materials. Last week, the Labor Ministry announced 10 factories had downsized their production lines, leaving 3,000 workers out of work. But the full impact of the coronavirus is expected to hit in March, when nearly 200 factories are expected to run out of their reserve inventory of materials. Now, this could spell doom for 160,000 workers and employees, more than 20% of the sector's 700,000 strong workforce. Australian summers are lengthening by a month or more, while winters are getting shorter due to climate change, according to an analysis by a leading think tank released on Monday. The Australia Institute said large swathes of the country were experiencing an additional 31 days of summer temperatures each year compared to the 1950s. While Sydney was just under the average with an extra 28 hot days a year, Melbourne added 38 warmer days since the middle of the 20th century. In some regional areas ravaged by bushfires in recent months, such as the New South Wales town of Port Macquarie, residents are now experiencing 7 more weeks of typical summer temperatures. Australia Institute Climate and Energy Program Director Richie Merzian said temperatures which were considered a regular 3-month summer in the 1950s now span from early to mid-November all the way to mid-March. And summers have grown longer even in recent years, with the last 5 years facing summers twice as long as their winters. Australia's capital, Canberra, lost 35 winter days, while the city of Brisbane in the country's east lost 31 cooler days. Merzian said global warming was making the country's summers increasingly dangerous, with less time in winter to carry out bushfire prevention work and extreme heat causing health and economic impacts. And finally, in our news, the Boston-Vancouver rivalry reignited as the Boston Bruins and the Vancouver Canucks took to the ice at Rogers Arena in Vancouver. Here's Eagle News correspondent Anthony Sevilla with a report.
The Vancouver Canucks took down the top team in the National Hockey League, the Boston Bruins, in a convincing 9-3 win at home and snapped the Bruins' 5-game winning streak. The Canucks found a way to turn it around after dropping their last 2 games to Anaheim and Minnesota with a combined 2-4-2 record in their last 8 games.
David Pastrnak of the Bruins led his team in scoring. The leading scorer in the National Hockey League scored 2 of the 3 goals for Boston in the loss. However, his 2-goal effort was outshined by the offensive effort by the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks' 9 goals against the Bruins tied the team's single-game goal total this season. JT Miller, Troy Stecher, and newcomer Tyler Toffoli had 3 points each. Defenseman Quinn Hughes continued to shine, who recorded 2 assists for his 14th and 15th point in his last 11 games.
I think it was a good test, obviously. You know, against a team like that, you're not going to score 9 ever. But we played a really good game tonight. Everybody was going. We worked hard, wore them down. They were at the end of the trip. You know, we just kind of wore them down, and you know, it feels really good here. Well, I think we're buying into just winning, beating that team over the personal side of things. I mean, anytime you play that well and put up that many against, you know, one of the best teams in the league, it feels really good, especially we feel like we owed them a little something from a couple weeks ago. So, like I said, everybody bought in tonight. We stuck to our game plan, played well. You know, they had a little push in the beginning of the third, but obviously we responded nicely.
You know, you want to perform in big games, and you want to be a guy that steps up. And against, obviously, our line had a tough matchup tonight, and Tanny and Hughesy against a heck of a line, and I thought we did a great job containing them.
With Brock Besser out for the remainder of the season, Tyler Toffoli was plugged into the first line with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. The newly acquired forward notched his first as a Vancouver Canuck, finishing with 2 goals and an assist.
I mean, it feels good. Obviously, scoring a goal this early kind of makes it a little easier, but at the same time, you just got to keep working. And I mean, it sounds cliche, but keep trying to build the chemistry with these guys. I mean, not just my line mates, but everybody. The D, you're making changes, and other guys are out there with you. So lots of talk and lots of work, and we're going to have some fun.
Canucks captain Bo Horvat had a goal and an assist in the win against Boston. He shared his thoughts about his team's performance and gave credit to his new teammate Tyler Toffoli.
He's awesome. He's played a great game again tonight. He was great in the game before that, and great addition to our team. Obviously, goal scoring. When he gets in those areas, he's not going to miss very much, and he showed that tonight.
The Boston Bruins were faced with a difficult challenge heading into Rogers Arena, who played their third game in 4 nights. Chris Wagner of the Bruins was asked if that played a factor in the loss to Vancouver.
Look, they're a tough team to play against. We saw when they came into our building, I think even though the score was a little lopsided, we knew what they could bring and the potential problems they could pose. So they played well tonight. They played hard, and like you said, at the end of a 3-4, that really didn't cross our minds too much. Maybe we probably should have thought about it, but it is what it is. It's part of the game, and we didn't have it. This team has taken a lot of pride over the last a lot of years and last number of games as well, and tonight we just didn't have it. So everything in between, you name it, it probably happened tonight. So it's unfortunate, and now we got to sit on it for a few days, which is probably the crappy part. But yeah, it was an ugly one.
Despite the loss, the Bruins still hold the top spot in the Eastern Conference with a 5-point cushion in front of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Vancouver's win put them at 72 points and a game back for the Vegas Golden Knights for the top seed in the Pacific Division. From Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Anthony, and that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, thank you, and we'll see you soon. I'm Alma Angeles, always 1 with 25. Good night.